Hello, BookTube. I want to read you another chapter from Mr. Scarborough's family. I'll put 2 chapters up today. It won't matter in a playlist, but I want to keep going with this story. We have followed poor, dispirited Mr. Gray, Mr. Scarborough's lawyer, back home as the full import of this last plot twist, that it turns out Montjoy Scarborough is the legitimate heir after all, that for 30 years Mr. Scarborough has carried around 2 different marriage certificates, attested, both of them. The upshot of all that, among many other upshots, is that Mr. Gray comes to the conclusion that he is done as a lawyer. Not just for Mr. Scarborough, but in general, that he should retire. No one's going to believe that he wasn't part of this scheme, and the few people who might believe that he wasn't part of it are going to think he's a moron, because as a lawyer he couldn't detect it. But I want to move on. I want to move on to the next chapter. This is called Scarborough's Revenge. All these things were not done at Tretton altogether unknown to Augustus Scarborough. So Augustus Scarborough, for a while there, by law, was the inheritor of Tretton Park. But now he's not. His father hates him. His brother hates him. And this bombshell completely leaves him out in the cold. He doesn't get anything. Tidings as to the will reached him, and then he first perceived the injury he had done to himself in lending his assistance to the payment of the creditors. Because it was his insistence to do that. Had his brother been utterly bankrupt, so that the Jews, that is, the moneylenders, might have seized any money that might have come to him, his father would have left him no will in his favor. All that was now intelligible to Augustus. The idea that his father should strip the house of every stick of furniture and the estate of every chattel upon it had not occurred to him before the thing was done. He had thought that his father was indifferent to all personal offense, and therefore he had been offensive. He found out his mistake, and therefore was angry with himself. But he still thought that he had been right in regard to the creditors. Had the creditors been left in possession of their unpaid bonds, they would have been offered terrible impediments to the taking possession of the property. That's why he wanted it, so that he could take clean possession without these people saying, hey, you owe me something. They've all been bought off legally. He had been right then, he thought. The fact was that his father had lived too long. However, the property would be left to him, Augustus, and he must make up his mind to buy other things from Montjoy. He, at any rate, would have to provide the funds out of which Montjoy must live, and he would take care that he did not buy the chattels twice over. It was thus he consoled himself till rumors of something else reached his ears. So he does have a plan. The original plan of Mr. Scarborough was, yes, Augustus has to inherit Tretton, but only Tretton, the ground and the 4 walls, and everything else I can leave to Montjoy. All the pictures, all the furniture, everything. And Augustus has a plan. Montjoy is an incurable gambling addict, so he will want money for those things. I'll just get them back from him, piecemeal. But now he's heard something even more horrible than that. How the rumors reached him, it would be difficult to say. They were probably some among the servants who got an inkling of what the squire was doing when Mr. Gray came down again. Or Miss Scarborough had some confidential friend, or Mr. Gray's clerk might have been indiscreet. The tidings in some unformed state did reach Augustus and astounded him. His belief in his father's story as to his brother's illegitimacy had been unfixed and doubtful. Latterly, it had verged towards more thorough belief as the creditors had taken their money, less than a third of what would have been theirs had the power remained with them of recovering their full debt. The creditors had thus been proved to their belief, and they were a people not likely to believe such a statement without some foundation. But at any rate, he conceived it to be impossible that his own father should go back from his first story and again make himself out to be doubly a liar and doubly a knave. But if it were so, what should he do? Because that's exactly what happened. Was it not the case that in such event he should be altogether ruined, a penniless adventurer with his profession absolutely gone from him? What little money had he got together had been expended on behalf of Montjoy, a sprat thrown out to catch a whale. Everything, according to the present tidings, had been left to Montjoy. He had only half known his father, who had turned against him with virulence because of his unkindness. Who could have expected that a man in such a condition should have lived so long and had been capable of a will so powerful? He had not dreamt of a hatred so inveterate as his father's for him. We've been told in an earlier chapter, Mr. Scarborough himself laments, why didn't Augustus know me better? What kind of a fool is he that he didn't know me better? He received news also from Tretton, that his father was not now expected to live long. It may be a week, the doctors say, and it is hardly possible that he should remain alive for another month. Such was the news which reached him from his own emissary at Tretton. What had he better do in the emergency of the moment? There was only one possible effective step that he could take. He might, of course, remain tranquil and accept what chance might have given him when his father should have died, but he might at once go down to Tretton and demand an interview with the dying man. He did not think that his father, even on his deathbed, would refuse to see him. His father's pluck was indomitable, and he thought that he could depend on his own pluck. At any rate, he resolved that he would immediately go to Tretton and take his chance. He reached the house about the middle of the day and at once sent up his name to his father. Miss Scarborough was sitting by her brother's bedside and from time to time was reading to him from a few words. "Augustus," he said, as soon as the servant had left the room, "what does Augustus want with me? The last time he saw me, he bade me die out of hand if I wished to retrieve the injury done to him." I think you could probably guess what he wants to talk to you about, right? "Do not think of that now, John," said his sister. "As God is my judge, I will think of it to the last moment. Words such as those spoken by a son to his father demand a little thought. Were I to tell you that I did not think of them, would you not know that I was a hypocrite?" "You need not speak of them, John." "Not unless he came here to harass my last moments. I strove to do very much by him. You know with what return. Montjoy has been, at any rate, honest and straightforward, and considering all things, not lacking in respect. I shall, at any rate, have some pleasure in letting Augustus know the state of my mind." What shall I say to him?" the sister asked. "Tell him that he had better go back to London. I have tried them both, and as few sons can be tried by their father, and I now know them. Tell him, with my compliments, that it will be better for him not to see me. There can be nothing pleasant said between us. I have no communication to make with him which would in the least interest him." But before night came, the squire had been talked over, and had agreed to see his son. "The interview will be easy enough for me," he had said, "but I cannot imagine what he will get from it. But let him come as he will." Augustus spent much of the intervening time discussing the matter with his aunt, but not a word on the subject was spoken to him by him to Montjoy, whom he met at dinner, and with whom he spent the evening in company with Mr. Merton. What an evening that must have been! The 2 hours after dinner were melancholy enough. The three adjourned to the smoking room and sat there almost without conversation. A few words were said about the hunting, but Montjoy had not hunted this winter. There were a few also of interest about the shooting. The shooting was, of course, still the property of the old man, and in the early months had, without any words spoken, become, as it were, an appendage of the condition of life to which Augustus aspired. But of late Montjoy had assumed the command. "You found plenty of pheasants here, I suppose," Augustus remarked. "Well, yes, not too many. I didn't trouble myself much about it. When I saw a pheasant, I shot it. Because, of course, why wouldn't you? I've been a little troubled in spirit, you know." "Gambling again, I heard." "That didn't trouble me much. Merton can tell you that we've had a sick house." "Yes, indeed," said Merton. "It hasn't seemed to be a time in which a man would think very much of his pheasants." "I don't know why," said Augustus, who was determined not to put up with the rebuke implied in the doctor's words. After that, there was nothing more to be said between them, so they all went to their separate apartments. "Don't contradict him," his aunt said to him the next morning. "If he reprimands you, acknowledge that you have been wrong." "That's hard, when I haven't been wrong." "But so much depends on it. He is so stern. Of course, I wish well for both of you." "There is plenty, if only you could agree together," both of you being Augustus and Montjoy. "But the injustice of his treatment. Is it true that he now declares Montjoy to be his eldest son?" "I believe so. I do not know, but I believe it." "Think of what his conduct has been to me, and then you tell me that I am to own that I have been wrong. In what have I been wrong?" "He is your father, and I suppose you have said hard words to him." "Did I rebuke him because he had fraudulently kept me for so many years in the position of the younger son? Did I forgive him for that iniquity?" "But he says you are the younger son." "This last move," he said with great passion, "has only been in an attempt to punish me, because I would not tell him that I was under the world of obligation to him simply for declaring the truth as to my birth. We cannot both be his eldest son." "No, certainly not both." At last he declared that I was his heir. If I did say hard words to him, were they not justified?" "Not to your father," said Miss Scarborough, shaking her head. "That is your idea? How was I to abstain? Think what he had done to me. Through my whole life he had deceived me and attempted to rob me." "But he says that he had intended to get the property for you." "To get it? It was mine. According to what he has said, it was my own. He had robbed me to give it to Montjoy. Now he intends to rob me again in order that Montjoy might have it. He will leave such a kettle of fish behind with all his maneuvering that neither of us will get the better of Tretton." Then he went to the squire. In spite of what had passed between him and his aunt, he thought deeply of his conduct to his father in the past, and of the manner in which he should now carry himself. He was aware that he had behaved not badly, for that he esteemed it nothing, but mostly unwisely. When he found himself to be the heir of Tretton, he had fancied himself to be almost the possessor, and had acted on the instinct which in such case would have been natural to him. In other words, a petty, dismissive tyrant. To have pardoned the man because he was his father, and then to have treated him with insolent disdain, as some dying old man almost entirely beneath his notice, was what he felt the nature of the circumstances demanded. We just cannot like this guy. Trollope will not let us like this guy. And whether the story was true or false, it had been the same. He had come at last to believe it to be true, and had therefore been the more resolute, and whether it be true or false, the old man had struck his blow, and must abide by it. Till the moment came in which he had received that communication from Tretton, the idea had never occurred to him that another disposition of the property might still be within his father's power. Now, it doesn't occur to first-time readers of this book, either. But he had little known the old man's power, or the fertility of his resources, or the extent of his malice. "After what you have done, you should cease to stay and disturb us," he had once said, when his father had jokingly alluded to his own death. He had at once repented, and had felt such a speech to have been iniquitous as coming from a son, but his father had, at that moment, expressed no deep animosity. Some sarcastic words had fallen from him of which Augustus had not understood the bitterness, but he had remembered it since, and was now not so much surprised at his father's wish to injure him as his power. But could he have such power? Mr. Gray, he knew, was on his side, and Mr. Gray was a thorough lawyer. All the world was on his side, and all the world having been instructed to think and believe that Mr. Scarborough had not been married till after Montjoy was born. All the world had been much surprised, and would be unwilling to encounter another blow. Should he go into his father's room altogether penitent, or should he hold up his head and justify himself? One thing was brought home to him by thinking, as a matter of which he might be convinced. Penitence could now avail him nothing. He had at any rate by this time looked sufficiently into his father's character to be sure that he would not forgive such an offense as has been his. Any vice, any extravagant, almost any personal neglect would have been pardoned. "I have so brought him up," the father would have said, "and the fault must be counted as my own." But his son had deliberately expressed a wish for his father's death, and had expressed it in his father's presence. He had shown not only neglect, which may arise at a distance, and may not be absolutely intentional, but these words which is said with the purpose of wounding, and were and would be unpardonable. Augustus, as he went along the corridor to his father's room, determined that he would at any rate not be penitent. "Well, sir, how do you find yourself?" he said, walking in briskly and putting out his hand to his father. The old man languidly gave his hand, but only smiled. "I hear of you, though not from you, and they tell me that you have not quite been so strong of late." "I shall soon cease to stay and trouble you," said the squire, with affected weakness in his voice, hardly above a whisper, using the very words which Augustus had spoken. "There have been some moments between us, sir, which have been unfortunately unpleasant." "And yet I have done so much to make them pleasant to you. I should have thought that the offer of all Tretton would have gone for much with you." Augustus was again taken in. There was a piteous whine about his father's voice which once more deceived him. He did not dream of the depths of the old man's anger. He did not imagine that at such a moment it could boil over with such ferocity, nor was he altogether aware of the cat-like quietude in which he could have paved the way for his last spring. Montjoy, by far the least gifted of the two, had gained the truer insight into his father's character. "You had done much, or rather, I suppose, circumstances had done much." "Circumstances? In fact, I mean, as to Montjoy's birth and my own. I have not always left myself to be governed by actual circumstances. If there was any omission on my part of an expression of proper feeling, I regret it." "I don't know that there was. What is proper feeling? There was no hypocrisy, at any rate." "You sometimes are a little bitter, sir. I hope you won't find it so when I'm gone. I don't know what I have said to have angered you, but I may have been driven to say what I did not feel." "Certainly not to me." "I am not here to beg pardon for any special fault, as I do not quite know of what I am accused. Of nothing. There was no accusation at all. Nor what the punishment is to be. I have learned that you have left Montjoy all the furniture in the house. Yes, poor boy, when I found that you had turned him out. I never turned him out, not till your house was open to receive him. You would not have wished him to go into the poorhouse. I did the very best for him. I kept him going when there was no one else to give him a shilling. He must have had a bitter time, said the father. I hope it may have done him good. I think I behaved to him just as an elder brother should have done. You aren't the elder brother, you worm. He is not particularly grateful, but that was not my fault. Still, I thought it best to leave him the old sticks about the place. As he was to have the property, it was better that he should have the sticks. Dun, dun, dun. As he said this, he managed to turn himself around and look his son full in the face. Such a look it was. There was a gleam of victory and a glory of triumph and the venom of malice. You wouldn't have them separated, would you? I have heard of some further trick on your kind. Just the ordinary way in which things ought to be allowed to run. Mr. Gray, who is a very good man, persuaded me. Mr. Gray did not persuade you. No man ought to interfere with the law. An attempt in that direction led to evil. Montjoy is the eldest son, you know. I know nothing of the kind. Oh, my dear, no, there is no question at all. The date of my marriage to your mother, we were married in quite a straightforward way at Rummelsburg. When I wanted to save the property from those harpies, I was surprised to find how easily I managed it. Gray was a little soft there, an excellent man, but too credulous for a lawyer. I do not believe a word of it. You will find it all go as naturally as possible when I have ceased to stay and be troublesome. But one thing I must say in your favor. What do you mean? I could never have managed it all unless you had consented on that payment to the creditors. Indeed, I must say that it was chiefly your own doing. When you first suggested it, I saw it was a fine thing that you were contriving for your brother. I should think, after all, of leaving it all so that you need not find out the truth when I am dead. I do not think I had so managed it that you would have had the property. Montjoy, who has some foolish feeling about his mother, and who is obstinate as a pig, would have fought it. But I had so contrived that you would have had it. I had sealed up every document referring to the Rummelsburg marriage. I had addressed them all to you. I couldn't have made it safer, could I? Since Augustus would have received that package on his father's death and promptly burned it. I don't know what you mean. You would have been enabled to destroy every scrap of evidence which would wanted to prove your brother's legitimacy. Had I burned the papers, I could not have put them more beyond Montjoy's reach. Now they are quite safe, in Mr. Gray's office. His clerk took them away with him. I would not leave them here with Montjoy because, well, you might come, and he might be murdered. Now Mr. Scarborough had had his revenge. You think that you have done your duty, said Augustus. I do not care two straws about doing my duty, young man. Here Mr. Scarborough raised himself in part, and spoke in that strong voice which was supposed to be so deleterious to him. Or rather, in seeking my duty, I look beyond the conventionalities of the world. I think that you have behaved damnably, and that I have punished you. Because of Montjoy's weakness, because he had been knocked off his legs, I endeavored to put you on yours. You at once turned upon me when you thought the deed was done, and bade me go and bury myself. You were a little too quick in your desire to become the owner of Tretton Park at once. I have stayed long enough to give some further trouble. You will not say after this that I am non compos and unable to make a will. You will find that under mine not one penny piece, not one scrap of property will become yours. Montjoy will take care of you, I do no doubt. He must hate you, but will recognize you as his brother. I am not so soft-hearted and will not recognize you as my son. Now you may go away. So saying, he turned himself round to the wall and refused to be induced to utter another word. What an amazing thing to say to your son, that whole speech. Augustus began to speak, but when he had commenced his second sentence, the old man rung his bell. Mary, he said to his sister, will you have the goodness to get Augustus to go away? I am very weak, and if he remains, he will be the death of me. He can't get anything by killing me at once. It is too late for that. Then Augustus did leave the room, and before the night came, he left Tretton also. He presumed there was nothing left for him to do there. One word he did say to Montjoy. You will understand, Montjoy, that when our father is dead, Tretton will not become your property. I shall understand nothing of the kind, said Montjoy, but I suppose Mr. Gray will tell me what I am to do. So there you go. There you go. That is, we're going to shift scenes after these two chapters to go elsewhere for a minute. But now we have the lay of the land. Mr. Scarborough's finally had his revenge on a son who told him to hurry up and die. By telling him, I don't consider you to be my son, and I'm disinheriting you of every last penny. You'll get nothing at all. And now go. Get out of my sight. Knowing that he's never going to see him again. And the final word of the chapter is that the Scarborough boys are going to fight. That Augustus is going to condense this whole thing. So that's where we leave this chapter. I thought I'd do 2 chapters today. We'll move on next time, and we'll see what more Trollope has to do. We don't have long to go in this book. So I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you then. Thank you, BookTube.